Rob, man, thanks so much for coming on the show here today. Really excited to have you on. Could you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Coach, again for having me on. Sports psychology coach. Work with athletes, coaches, and teams on mental toughness, and that's how we perform our best when it matters the most, and then how we deal, handle, and cope with the struggle, adversity, and the setbacks in life. And as you and I both know, this isn't a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. So I've been blessed, man, to work with so many just different types of athletes, man, from the pro level and collegiate and even, the elite high school level, all different sports. I've written 8 books on mental toughness, and I love doing endurance sports myself, man. Ironmans, 100-milers. I love ultra running, and then golf as well, man, which always draws my ire, but I still love it. Yep. Been married and father of 2 kids, man, 2 teenagers now. So
wow, that's crazy, dude. They're getting big.
Yeah,
they're getting big.
Time.
Yeah, I know. We're going to talk about time for sure. Well, talk to me a little bit. What got you into the world of physical preparation? Whether it was working out or what got you into this whole space to begin with?
Oh man, like first working out days.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
First working out days was probably because of Lou Ferrigno. The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
And then just trying to, this is a real dude. And then seeing him then compete. And I was too young at that time. I didn't watch Pump and Iron until later. But that was it. And then it was automatically, man, I was drawn to the, just being able to push yourself a little bit more here, right? See if you can rep out 2 more push-ups, man. And then it was the Joe Weider, I was getting all those magazines, man. And, and then obviously Arnold was a huge part of that as well. But, that was, and I was always drawn to athletics, man, my entire life, But when it came to actually working out in the physical part, that was where it was introduced.
Okay, very cool. And then talk to me. I like everybody here to give me a little recap of their career, like the career arc, and just, man, what got you into the psychology side of this?
Sure.
And then maybe some of the stops that you had along the way, because I think that's really important for young people and young coaches to hear is like, hey, these are the things that you can do in this space, and then how you actually got there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have so many good guests, man. And this isn't a linear path, right? They've all said it's not a linear path.
Right.
And there's many false summits along the way, right? When you reach that mountaintop, there's another mountain to climb, or it's like, no, it's not what I thought it'd be. But with my journey and being an athlete, I was always the athlete that thought too much, Mike. No one could ever help me out. No one could ever say, don't worry about it. That was kind of the advice, you know what I mean? It's like, well, when you get outside your own head, you'll play better. Well, the thing is when I was on, I was on. When I was off, no middle ground. So coaches hated me because you had no idea who you were going to get, man. One day it was Tom Cruise, the next day it was Adam Sandler. So there was no consistency. So I was always thinking, and I could just never shut it off. And whenever I'm working with athletes too, man, I try to let them know, look, with coaches, right? You got to make your smart athletes, let them use their intelligence. You got to let the dumb athletes, let them keep it simple, right? It's when we try to make the dumb athletes smart and we try to make the smart athletes dumb, that doesn't work. But sorry for the tangent, man. So the journey was, and then when I got to college, a little D2 school in West Virginia to play baseball, and my myopic view was my 87-mile-an-hour fastball was going to get me to the major leagues. But I had really discovered partying early on in high school, and that had when I got to college, I could have partying and baseball and no accountability. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. Right.
We're partying near a bridge one night. I ended up walking off an 80-foot cliff. I wasn't jumped. I wasn't pushed. I just had no idea where I was. And, I lay at the bottom right next to the river, but near this crevasse, and, I fractured my back, broke my arm, gaping head wound, but I was conscious during the whole time, but I was alive,
Oh my gosh.
And then that was the start of it, because boom, baseball is over. There was no more baseball. And that was, in every bad situation, some good is going to come out of it. And probably if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have taken that psychology class. But when I took that psychology class, man, I was drawn in, and I was so dialed in. This is what I want to do. It was tattooed in my heart. I'm going to work with athletes in some way, some fashion here. I'm going to do this for my life, because sports has to be a part of it. And now the mental game.
Yeah.
And then I started to see answers. And then to not to belabor the point, but man, I can tell about the Dan and Dave story, I guess, man, if it's okay for time. But
yeah, I'd love that. Of course.
Dan O'Brien and Dave Johnson. So this was when Reebok had the pump that was out, right? So early 90s. And they had it, who's going to win the gold in Barcelona, Spain? Is it going to be Dan or Dave? Yep. Great commercials, man, because nobody paid attention to decathlon. Well, you paid attention to it. You started to root for somebody. And so, rooting for Dan O'Brien, I was like, he goes to Olympic trials. And he's on world record pace, and he no-heights in the pole vault. So he goes from first to last, doesn't even make the Olympic team. Reebok has to pull the commercials. And it's like, wait a second, like that made no sense to me. How did the best in the world not even make the Olympics? And I cut that article out of the Washington Post, and I saved that, right? And still being as a young teenager, and I saved it.
Yeah.
And I even ran into him in early 2000s and connected with him and showed him. I said, look, man, this is why I got into the field of sports psychology, because I was like, it just didn't make any sense. But when I got to college and then really got into this field, and I was like, I'm going to see how he's doing. He started to see a mental coach, a sports psychologist, somebody that could help him with his preparation, his routines, his mental game, the confidence and letting go of mistakes. And then when I saw then in 96, when he won gold in Atlanta, hey, it's not about the setback, it's about the comeback. And that's when I knew, it's like, okay, there is a path here to work with athletes. This is what I want to do. So that was a huge hinge moment that happened in my life. Graduating college, and then kind of another hinge moment, but I was a fringe candidate at best. I was really focused in my field, but I couldn't care less about physics and stuff like that. I wouldn't say physics, but economy. So I did okay in college. But to get to grad school, you have to be a good student. And but I was fortunate enough to get an assistantship at Temple University. So I got my master's there. And I'm always made the commitment to myself, if I ever get a second chance of life, I'm going to go all the way. And what I meant by that is, like, when I got into Temple, I knew I was given another shot. I wasn't going to blow it.
Right.
And man, I was studying. I read all the books before I even got to the semester started. I started running marathons then and was so dialed in, all the discipline, right? Like when I was living in Philly, man, I wouldn't even allow myself a cheesesteak. That's how dialed in I was, because I wasn't going to blow it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure. I get you.
And went to the University of Tennessee, got my doctorate there, and then started working with athletes, a little bit more intense. University of Tennessee, obviously a great petri dish of athletes and the breeding of athletes there. Started working with pro golfers. And then I wanted to make money, so I actually made the leap to academia. So I was a professor running the sports psych program at Ball State University from 2006 to 2011. And then I just wasn't happy anymore. I had 2 kids under the age of 5 and decided I'm going to leave. And it's not like it was a lot of money, Mike, but it was comfortable, but I wasn't happy, man. But I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
I said, look, this is what I want to do. And I always had that vision. So started my own company in 2011, man. And a lot of ups and downs through that. But that was in a sense, man, the journey. And it took us here to 2024, man.
Yeah, I love it, dude. I love it.
Condensed that enough?
No, that was great. And I think today I'm actually reading your book, I Can't Wait to Be Patient, which is phenomenal. It's a really fun read. I either read like super nerdy like textbooks, books like yours, or comic books. It's like there's very little in between, right? But there are so many good passages in this book, and so like for the kind of rest of this show, I think what I want to do is focus on some of those passages, some of those areas that you keyed in on, and then like just bring it back to you and hear your thoughts on this. So
absolutely. Thanks, man.
It's really great. And I'll make sure, if you're listening and you want to check out either this book or any of Dr. Rob's, I'll make sure I get the link in the show notes. But one of my favorites, And everybody loves to talk about time. You and I were talking about it before the show. But here is a passage, and then we'll talk about it. Time is undefeated, but many think of time as an opponent. It must become an ally, not an opponent, in order to win the challenges we face. So I have never thought of it quite like that. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that, about time becoming an ally versus an opponent.
Yeah. This was the most difficult book for me to write. It took 16 months, and I write every day. Like when I'm writing a book, it's for 1 hour every day. That was my system. And it was 16 months. And the reason why is because the message that we get is you got to get after it. Urgency, no day offs. I mean, what else? You know what I mean? Like no off season, right? So I'm not saying any of that is incorrect. It's all right. However, there has to be a flip side to that coin. And the flip side of that coin is time. Time is our most precious resource. And it is the common denominator that we all have. And so the way that I look at a lot of the issues, stresses, and being overwhelmed in life is through time. Like I think that just has to be the avenue that we have to look at things first. Look at all of our issues through time. When we get overwhelmed, when we get stressed, when we get anxious, a lot of that is because, well, we want something now, right? We're not getting a reply from somebody from the macro level to the micro level, man, and or flip that, reverse it. But when I look at time then as being an ally, it's really supply demand theory when it comes to time. What I mean by that is it's because we can't defeat it, because it is undefeated. We just have to develop a better relationship with it. And the supply and demand theory of economics is the same thing with time. When we're young, we have an unlimited supply of time. And we have very little demand. The older we get, and then we can even look at it kind of like through high school years, right? High school years, like the demand increases, but we still have an unlimited supply. It's only... Sometimes when I say this too, right? It's only when there are major time stamps in our life that show us our fragility and our, futility, right? Like that we are going to die, that this is going to end. Do we realize that there is a supply? And then when we start to look at the supply, and the supply now starts to drop, the demand has now increased, and demand always keeps increasing. But now we place a higher value on time because of the supply and demand theory. Because supply is decreasing and because the demand is increasing, hey, prices go up, and the same thing. Now we value time even better. So that's the part where I'm looking at. It's about improving our relationship with time.
That's so interesting. I remember when I was first coming into the industry, one of my earliest mentors was a guy named Alan Cosgrove. And Alan just had such a unique perspective on life, 2-time cancer survivor. And so I was super blessed to have him in my life and to help guide me, early in my career, whether it was speaking or running a business. And one of the things that he taught me, because he just had such a great perspective, was replace the word time with life. So anytime you say, I don't have time for that, I don't have the life for that.
Good one.
Right? Man. And it's just that subtle little mindset shift, but that always stood out to me. Because, you're trading time for life. So are you willing to make that trade? I
love it. I'm going to borrow that one. See, I should have talked to you before it was published, man. I'm going to put that in there.
Well, so then this kind of ties in because later in the book, you were talking about procrastination. And I thought this was really interesting because if you're listening to this show, look, at some point in time in your life, you have procrastinated, right? Every one of us can raise our hand. Yeah, I did that. But you talked about with the same supply and demand concept is that, when you're younger, we actually tend to procrastinate more because, again, you've got that indefinite supply of life, right? And when you age, hey, I better get this stuff done, right? Because I don't have forever to live. So can you talk to me a little bit about that? Because I thought that part was really interesting too.
Yeah, man. So, it's a great point. It was kind of like... I talked with Nick Hardwick. He and I, and again, he played with the Chargers for years, man, and then now coaching there. But he said something. He was like, you ever think about why when you're in the third grade that life just seems to stand still? I said, yeah, I kind of remember that. Like going through my grade school years, it seemed like it took forever, man. You know what I mean? And it was like summers
Right.
were endless. And now that shifted, like changed, right? And it was like, why was that?
Yeah.
He was like, well, when you're in the third grade, so when you're 8 years old, 1 year of your life is 90% of your existence. Meaning, you know, in the third grade, your whole life is the third grade, right? There's really not
Right.
a lot of reference points to do it. Well, by the time that you get, and I'm reading this one from the book, right? By the time that you get 40 years old, you've now experienced 1 year of life is just 50% of your life. And so that's why it seems, man, that time goes faster. And then you realize, and this is then back to the original point, right? This is why it was so hard to write, is you have to be urgent towards the things that are important. No question.
Yes.
Man. Like you have to be a dog towards your preparation, towards spending time with your family, because you're going to have to say no to things. And then when you're saying no to things, you have to say yes to the right things. Well, oftentimes I just think like, look, we procrastinate because we just don't think things are that important. The way that we deal with procrastination, and when I'm working with athletes that procrastinate, is you just have to have a list of what is the most important things that we want to do. Where is it that you want to go? And yes, you have to do things that you don't want to do. I get it. Well, that's the part about mental toughness that comes into play, is you still have to approach that with an urgency and enthusiasm unknown to mankind. And you just have to get better at scheduling the time to be able to do those things. The problem is we don't schedule the time, right? And it's still kind of hanging out there. And then we'll take a little bit of time and we'll kind of do that, which we don't want to do. Let's just say it's writing a paper, right? We don't want to write the paper. So we wait. And okay, I'm going to do a little bit of the paper. And then what happens? We write the paper. We don't actually finish the paper. We don't review it. But in our mind, hey, it's done. Okay, well now what we have is now we have an unfinished product that is going to occupy more of our mental space because it is not done. And now we're going to procrastinate even further on that. But in our mind, we've kind of checked the box. So, and this is kind of like the solution part to it of the procrastination is when you start something, make sure you finish it. And I don't mean just like finish it, because I was guilty of this as well. And sometimes today, right? Oh, I'll just go back and then I'll reply to that email. If you finish the paper now, and if you go back and you reread it again, and you proofread it, and now just the one more mentality comes into play, right? All right, I'm just going to read it one more time, and then it's going to be done. And then, you know, you pick and you choose, and then, okay, now it's done. Now you've freed up the mind. You don't have to worry about that project anymore, but now your mind is free, and it's not tethered to that project you have to do, meaning you can focus on different things. You can focus on having fun and doing the things that you want to do. Because that's the importance of, man, you have to be able to schedule. I call them off my desk, right? You have to schedule the off my desk stuff throughout the day of when that's going to be planned. And then when you control the time, your time's going to give you unlimited amount of benefits, man. We're just not. And that's why I don't like saying time management, because you're not managing time, right? You're just scheduling the things that you don't want to do, and you're scheduling the things that you want to do and that you just want to do better at. That's how I kind of look at that procrastination piece, man.
No, I love it. And I don't think people give enough credence, or they don't really understand the impact that having, I just call those open loops, right? When you have all those open loops just sitting out there like, oh, I got to respond to this email, and I got to proof that paper, and I got to call this person back. Like, man, one of the most important things you can do, you talked about scheduling, brain dumping, right? Getting all of that stuff on one piece of paper, get it out of your head, and then getting serious about closing some of those loops. Because otherwise you're just like this all day, right? You know, you're thinking about this and that, and then the time and the person you're really with gets like 50% of you.
Yep.
Because you're thinking about all those open loops that you haven't closed because you didn't just finish the job in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, right? Then we're with our kids or with our family or with our team, and then that thought pops in the head, oh, I got to remember that. That's the real difficulty. It's not that it's out there and we have to do it. It's that we're going to think about it. That's what becomes the major task. And then our mindset, and it's just like a gas tank. You only have so much focus or discipline that you can implement in time to time, right? And It has to be geared up every day. It's got to be fueled up every day. But that's what you start using, especially then when it comes to your focus mentality. Same thing, man. You can't have those open loops. I love that.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. So something you talked about in the book, and I thought of all the things, this challenged me the most. So I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on that. So I want to talk about action bias. Okay. So for starters, I'd love for you to just explain what action bias is and why it can sometimes actually lead to worse results.
Man. Yeah, I love it.
This is a good one. This is a good one.
Appreciate that, man. Action bias, right? It's doing something has to be better than doing nothing in every circumstance. Don't just sit there, do something.
Yep.
So it plays out all the time. And if anybody follows me on Instagram, they will see this when it comes to football season, right? Icing the kicker. What do coaches do all the time? And they call timeout. Why? Because calling timeout is action bias at work. Doing something, we got to call timeout. What happens if a coach doesn't call timeout when there's no time left on there? The very first question that they're going to have to answer is, well, why didn't you call timeout? You had a timeout. Don't take any timeouts to the locker room with you. Okay, well, I get it. But do you know more? It makes no difference. Like statistically, it makes no difference whether they're going to call timeout or not. And that is at the pro level. That is also at the collegiate level. High school level, man, I'm not quite sure. Because the ability to call timeout is what you're saying is, I'm going to make them think about it more. Okay, well, the mental game has become so elite at a level, especially with these guys and girls, that look, it's just about your routine and getting into your routine, and it makes no difference. But coaches still do it. That's an example of the action bias, because doing something has to be better than doing nothing. And I've talked with coaches about it, and they said, look, it's still the feeling that I'm implementing the game somehow, that I have to do something. I can't not call timeout, when I think the opposite is going to be true. And then delving into this and looking at the research that went into the book, like there was a study that was done that looked at cardiologists, top cardiologists in the nation. And when they were away, the mortality rate went down. Like, wait a second. Like, how does the mortality rate go down if the top cardiologists were away at conferences? They looked at twice a year. And this translated into when doctors went on strike. But when the top doctors were away, other doctors were then put in charge. And it's not that they just put it off, but what they looked at was, let's see if really doing this surgery, and you got to think about it, right? The cardiology, the patients that are going in for cardiology problems aren't in the best of health. So doing the surgery could put them at risk. Well, top cardiologists were like, we're doing it. Right. And because they're the best, right? There's an ego to it. They kind of look at the cost benefit and they're like, yeah, we're going to do it. Those that weren't said, we're going to wait and see. And the wait and see approach is what actually did better. And it translates into all areas of life, Mike. Let's look back at this past year, right? Past year, the Milwaukee Bucks, they lost 3 games and they fired their head coach.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? What's going on? Or it might have been 13. It might have been 13 games. Sorry, man.
Right.
But 3 sounds better, right? Let's not let facts get in the way of a good story here. They fire their head coach. And then, they lose first round of the playoffs like they did the year before. But the thing is they couldn't wait. They could not wait, and we can't wait to see how this is going to play out. Their first, I think they were second. Like, they were second in the division at that point, and they were firing our coach. Because what happens now is we can't wait to see how things are going to play out. We can't stay the course. And that's action bias, right? Hey, we got to do something. We can't just see how this is going to work out. When in reality, oftentimes we have to don't just do something, sit there, right? Let it marinate. Have you ever drank wine before it's ready? Like try, when you're cooking a good dish, man, it's best to, let that water go to a boil instead of just making sure that's on like boiling right away. And here's like the dichotomy, man, because I'm not saying action is bad in every circumstance, but what the message you always hear is, if you want to change something, go do it, right? Go get it. I'm not against that, sure. But that's the part where you really have to, what I'm saying is this: think, spend time in thought, read, pray, talk about it with somebody. Take your time, right? Relax. Because if there's no off switch, if what you're getting after in life and you're getting after it with urgency, this practice, this preparation, you're getting after it with urgency, 100%, there has to be recovery that comes to it. And that's the part where I think patience is recovery of the mind. If you can wait, then you can win. But you got to be committed to the long-term plan. Do you know, and I'm sure you'd be in agreement with this as well, right, Coach? Look, Mike Krzyzewski, Bill Walsh, and Jimmy Johnson, some of the best coaches of all time, would have been fired after their second year because they all had losing seasons, man. They would have been gone. But you allow it to play out, and that it becomes even more pervasive now than ever before, right? What's the timeline that you've got? And that's where I just kind of look at it's the action bias. We have to do something in every circumstance when that's really not the case. You need to sometimes take your time, reflect, think about it, instead of just doing something. And that's the part where I look, and oftentimes then just think about it. When do most of think about our relationships. When do most of the issues come in our relationships, our closest relationships? So think about like our family. It's when we hear something and we fire right back. Well, you know what you need to do, honey. She doesn't want to hear that.
Right.
And then I'm automatically saying, oh, God, why'd I just say that? Oftentimes people just they don't need an answer. They want an acknowledgement.
Yes.
And so, I mean, I can go on and on about that, but I mean, that's action bias at work, man. I'm always paying attention to that and just looking for it, seeing when it is. And when a coach is going to call a timeout, bam, there we go. Action bias at work.
Right. Okay. So that was so interesting to me because I know there are numerous times in my life where I'm like, it's time to make moves, right? Let's get to work. Let's get some stuff done. And so, it's always good to hear both sides of the coin, right? Because there are times, hey, look, you know what needs to be done, right? You have the action, list or the to-do list. It's ready to go. Got to roll up the sleeves and get to work. But there's also times where like just blindly jumping in and just starting to do stuff. Well, hey, man, are you really moving the needle? Are you working on the most impactful things? Or are you just making yourself feel busy?
Right.
And I think that's another thing. People confuse busyness for productivity, and they are not one and the same thing.
100%, man. I mean, I think everything can always get back to Coach Wooden, right? Like, don't mistake action for achievement. And that's it, man. Yep. Busy is the illusion of control. The fact that we're doing something has to be better than doing nothing. When what I'm saying is, know what is most important and get after that, especially first.
Right.
But when you approach that with urgency, everything else is going to kind of take care of itself, man.
Yeah. For sure. Random anecdote that I love from your book. Hall of Fame coaches Bill Walsh, Tom Landry, and Jimmy Johnson, right? These are all like Hall of Fame coaches. Pretty sure they all won at least one, if not multiple, NFL championships. Started off a collective 0-25.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if any of these guys started off 0-7, 0-8, 0-9 in 2024? You just can't do it. Right? And it doesn't matter whether we're talking collegiate, whether we're talking professionally, the day and age now, we're just not willing to work through some of those difficult paths and those difficult times to achieve what we really want, right? And have a vision and kind of think into the future like, hey, yes, this sucks now, but this is where we're going and it's going to get better.
And that's the part of, those ownerships and administration, you got to have your coaches back to allow them the time to allow things to take place, and that's the part of what we're always talking about, the process and implementing the process. You really have to take just an intricate view in terms of, are we doing our process well? And looking at it like that. Too often we don't want to do that, man. We just want to look at the wins and losses. And
right. Yeah,
but you're going to see it this year. It doesn't matter what the sport is, right? Somebody's going to be fired before the season's over, man.
Right. Well, and like you alluded to, like you see it now, it's not just the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, another one was the Phoenix Suns. They gave Frank Vogel, I'm pretty sure, a ton of money in a 4 or 5 year deal, and I don't think he even made it one calendar year. He's already gone, and so again, that's where I'm not in those organizations, so I can't comment. But it seems fast. It seems fast, especially I just know as a coach, if I'm working with an athlete, a year is like no time. right? Like you're just starting to really like build a strong relationship and rapport. You know, if you really want to build something, you know this too. You work with athletes for years, if not decades. Like it takes time to tear down some of these walls and really get to know people. It's just really hard to create that level of rapport and empathy and just the strength of that relationship in a short window of time. It's just not something you can rush. So something else I want to talk about, and it kind of falls into the same vein, urgency versus importance. Right? Why do we get so caught up in the urgent when the important is what tends to be more impactful in our lives?
Yeah. So urgency trumps the important. And what I mean by that is you get a message from somebody saying whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter what it is. You get a message from somebody, text message from somebody. You feel you have to reply to that one right away. And is that one important? Well, let's just say if it is an important thing, like if it is an important decision, you still feel the need to, I've got to reply to this one right away. When it really, and the reason why it trumps the important is because of kind of that time-space continuum that we're talking about, is if what we do is put out fires all day, I need to fire off that email, I need to check in with that person, I need to take care of this issue, whatever these fires are, we never take care of that which is really important. And I can look at it from many different standpoints, right? From growing your business, but if you want to look at it from the athletic standpoint, the most important thing are going to be our clients, are going to be our athletes, and obviously always checking in with them. It is going to be growing business for sure, man. But when you just got to be able to look at the day and think of how many urgent things that we deemed urgent, our mind said it was urgent, and it's the same exact visceral reaction that we have to seeing a bear as opposed to an email comes across my screen saying, your website's down. Buddy, now, this is where I'm getting, this is where you get into the issues of, okay, there are the important urgencies that you have to do, right? These important urgencies, yes, man, absolutely. You got to be able to take care of that right away. So I kind of look at it throughout the day of, all right, if you, again, scheduling the time, man, and let nothing interfering with the time that you have. So let's just say if, I think we all get guilty of it, man, but it's like working with an athlete, you allow yourself to get into the zone, you allow yourself to get into flow. That's the best part of the day, man. If you're going to be writing, you just got to focus on that and let nothing else be able to distract you. Now, you schedule time throughout the day that I got to take care of these code reds and code blues, right? I will reply to that parent later on, but I'm not doing it right now because it's going to interfere with the important. And that's the way I kind of look at the urgency versus important. But if you always look at it, urgency trumps the important all the time, man. That's why CNBC will have different colors for the stock market, whether it's red or green, on how it's doing.
Right.
And if I could relate this, can I use this tangent here for a second?
I love tangents.
Love it, man. Like
I love it. Let's go.
The stock market has never lost money. We seem to forget that, right?
Right.
You watch CNBC, man, they're going to tell you this is a good stock to buy. This is a stock you got to sell. You got to sell it now. And we ride the emotion, and that's the thing. We're riding that emotion. Same thing. If you're watching ESPN or whatever, man, it's just flavor of the day. And so, but the stock market has never lost money. I would gladly have gotten in the stock market in 1980 for $1,000. Man, you pick it, right? Just put it in the index. Right. You put $1,000 in Apple stock, 1.4 million. You put 10,000 in, man, there's 10.4 million. But that's being clairvoyant, right? That's saying, you could see what that is. But if you put it in the index fund on $100, 1980, and look at it today, I can guarantee you that's gone up. Now, the stock market resembles life because there's going to be ups and downs, man. There's going to be wins. There's going to be losses. There's going to be recessions, man. You're going to go through a tough time. Stick with the process. Stay invested. Don't pull your money out. Buddy, that's free advice, right? And you pay attention. And everyone is a long-term investor until their stocks go down. Everyone agrees with, trust in the process, coach. We're with you. You're going to be our third coach here in 3 years. Well, what happened to the others? You know what I mean? Well, just, for whatever reason, man, we didn't allow time. And it's not, and then we'll relate it back to performance. It's not who gets there first. Doesn't matter if you're the best 12-year-old in the nation right now. I don't care the sport, man. Doesn't matter if you're the best 14-year-old. It's not who gets there first. It's who can get there and stay there. Yeah. Well, there's so much attention that gets put on the 12-year-old, the best in the nation. I make bets with anybody. Show me the best 12-year-old. Pick the sport. You pick the sport, coach. Best 12-year-old in the nation right now. Football.
Yeah.
Easy one, right? If they're the best 12-year-old in the nation, then they're going to be the best 16-year-old. They are the number one pick for whatever college that they want, and they're going to be the number one draft pick and the MVP in the league and the Super Bowl. But that rarely happens, if ever, and the reason why is because of all the facets that go into long-term development and time being the essence and really the core of that.
Yeah, I love it, man.
One more quote, Coach.
Yeah, go.
People,
Let's go.
I think it was like Steve Jobs asked Warren Buffett, how come everybody doesn't follow your investing strategy? And he said, because nobody wants to get rich slow.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that quote. That's a great one.
Look at the marketing that happens in everything. It gets back to time. All right, increase your Instagram followers, 9,000 people in 90 days. Which book are you going to buy, Coach, right? How to Get Rich in 7 to 9 years or How to Get Rich in 7 months? Whoa, the 7 months has to be better. And that's the part, man, where it's like you got to look at time, man, as the most precious resource. And, buddy, if you're going to be rich, you can't have a time stamp on that. You have to allow it to take place.
Yes.
Diversification is the best tool that there is, man.
Yeah, yeah. So that like kind of sawtooth analogy that you use for the stock market, I use that with rehab. I use that with training. Good days, bad days. Hey, look, it's going to happen, right? That is life. As long as the long-term trend is up, we're good to go, right? Right. That is the stock market. Something else that you've mentioned kind of loosely a couple times now is this idea of having a schedule, scheduling your day. I think there is a reason. Now, part of it is they control their own schedule, but basically every pro I work with, the bulk of their day is done by noon, right? In the sense that they've gotten up, they've had a good breakfast, they've got their shots up or got on the court, they have gotten their weight training in, right? They've gotten their recovery. They've got it all done by noon, right? Because that's the most important and impactful thing, right? So if you're not a pro athlete, but you're listening to this, like one of the most important things you can do is get all of your important tasks done before the day really starts. Because I know you can agree with this. We're business owners, so we're both a little bit crazy in that sense. Urgency tends to scale up as the day goes on, right? Everybody else is awake. Oh, I need this done. Can you get this for me immediately? Can you get, it's like, I need this done by the end of business today. Well, hey, look, nobody's up at 5:30 or 6 bugging me about stuff. So it's amazing what I can get done between 5 and 7 a.m. So scheduling and getting the important tasks done first, I think is really helpful. And when you're fresh, right? You're clear of mind in the morning. It's really hard to do like creative, important work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, no, totally, man. Totally. And
just some random thoughts.
Yeah. I say the first hour of the day sets the rudder for the rest, man.
Yeah. Yeah. If one other thing, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, Coach, I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I'm not saying, man, I'm really good at discipline. I'm not going to deny that. I'm really good at discipline. Really good at never giving up. That's what I'm really good at.
Yeah.
But there are times, man, where, you know what? I'll scroll for a little bit longer than I wanted to. And then I look and I'm like, damn, dude, that's 15 minutes there.
Yeah.
And then I'm able to catch myself and say that wasn't important. Let's look at the process again, what was going on, to how I stay dialed into what I'm doing. But
absolutely.
First part of the day, man, most important.
Get it done. And then the other piece is when you're doing that stuff, man, this works for me. Just put the phone in do not disturb. Don't look at it. No text, no notifications, because then the urgent, right? And keep in mind, your urgent doesn't necessarily equate to everybody else's urgent. So that way you can focus in on your important tasks, get those done, and then you can circle back to all the other things that the rest of the world wants you to do.
Absolutely, man. But here's the thing. Because it's somebody else's urgency implies that it's our urgency. We automatically, I'm going to own that because that is urgent for him, right? I got to do it.
Yeah.
I understand you have to do it, but I tell them internally, hey, man, you are first in line, right behind everybody else.
Right. Right. I love that. Okay, there's one final passage that I want to discuss, and I just thought this was really profound and it really stood out to me. So here goes. Success grows in those who know what is important and act with urgency toward the important. Peace rests with those who are also patient with the results. Okay, so that's the passage. And the way I think about this is I like to, at least for myself, assume or think that I'm working hard in the short term, right? The hustle mentality. I want to work hard towards the important things, but I'm also playing the long game, right? I don't expect the success to happen overnight. So would you agree with that kind of mindset or that kind of approach?
Unequivocally.
Oh, okay, good. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, man. I think rhythm is more important than speed. And what I mean by
that, I like that. Yeah.
What I mean by that one, Coach, is, and hopefully this answers the question, man. It, if you look at somebody that's really fast, let's just look at a point guard. Point guard's really fast. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Can they change speeds? Because it's the ability to change speeds that matter. Farmers, no one is ever going to say farmers don't work hard. I mean, they put the hustle in hustle culture, right?
Right.
No question, man. Nobody's saying farmers don't work hard. But they know that the day the seed is planted is not the day that it's harvested. And whenever I visited my uncle on the farm, my great uncle, they milked 100 head of cattle twice a day. And every day. It just didn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, how did they still have time for breakfast and to have coffee with their fellow farmers there, right? Because they understood and they knew that, hey, man, there's this part of the day from 4 to 6 that's going to be grind, and we got to take care of what we got to take care of. But we're still having time for breakfast. We're still eating dinner at noon, and it's not lunch, right? It's dinner, and then it's supper.
Yeah. And then supper, yeah.
So they understood, though, the rhythm throughout the day. And that's where I think, especially with your pro athletes you work with, right? They understand the rhythm, man. From 6 to noon is the grind time, and that is where I'm getting all these things done. And then it's rest and recovery for the rest of the day, man, because that's the time where not much is, so that's the part of rhythm. Rhythm is more important than speed, man. You got to have a rhythm throughout the day. There's a rhythm of life. There's a rhythm throughout the seasons. I'm sure you're tapping into that part.
Yeah. So another way I think about rhythm, and you use this, right? When you're writing for an hour a day, there's a reason you write for an hour a day versus, hey, I'm going to write for 2 hours today and then take the rest of the week off. Right? You get the rhythm, you get the flow, and then what happens? Your brain is primed. So I don't know what time you write, but hey, I know from 7 to 8 or whatever time you write, my brain's already locked in. So you're switched on the second you sit behind that keyboard because hey, it's go time. I'm going to write right now.
Yep. It's 100%. And then it's the consistency, right? If people talking about the incremental gains that you make, I tell my athletes, you don't have to be crazy about your preparation. There are times for craziness. I get it, right?
Yeah.
But you don't need to be crazy, but you have to be consistent. People talk about peak performance and playing great on the day. Rajiv Ram shared this one with me. I use it all the time, man. Number 1 doubles player still in the world.
Yeah.
He said, you don't need to be great on the day. You got to be great on the way. And I was like, man, I love that one, bud. Because again, every good quote rhymes. And it's man, that's such a righteous statement, man. You just have to get in the flow and doing what you do every day, man, because it's the writing for 1 hour every day. I mean, I've written 8 books on it. It works. But it's just getting your mind primed and ready to go. That's why I work out first thing in the morning too, man, because I don't want to be thinking about it. And 2, I love starting the day off right. And I love doing the hardest things. You got to do the hardest things very first, right? Do the things you don't want to do.
Knock them out.
And it doesn't mean like every hour was really productive too, man, but you're leaving yourself off with, all right, what I'm able to pick it back up tomorrow on a good note, you know? That's the best part.
Yep. Well, one other thing that people always talk about, and I didn't mean to say it quite like that, but they talk about the one thing, right? So when you're planning your day, like if you got nothing else done on this given day, what would the one thing be that would really move the needle in your business, in your life, whatever the case may be? And if you do that thing first, like you do, whether it's writing a book or getting a workout in, whatever that thing is, get it done first, everything else gets infinitely easier. Right? You got a lot of momentum going into the rest of your day.
Yeah. Amen.
I love it. Okay, man. Big question time. If you could alter the space-time continuum and give young Dr. Rob Bell one piece of advice, what would it be?
You know, my path got off on the wrong track because of partying, you know, drinking, pot, and there was a lot of trauma that happened like early on in life. Really wasn't in tune with it, but I just knew, hey man, I felt better. I liked hanging out. I liked having a good time.
Right.
And I sacrificed the long term for the short term. And if I was to go back and shake some sense into him, I would have told him that. Now the question is, Mike, if I had the ability, would I have done that? If I had the ability to change it, would I change it? No.
Right.
No, I wouldn't. And the reason why is because, because the present is possible because of the past. You know, even though the mistakes that we made in life, man, and, but that would have been the thing that I would have told him, man, is like, you know, what's it really for? It's for having a good time. Look, the better you get, the more important mental toughness is off the field than on the field. And I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Off the field things, the distractions of what you do, who you surround yourself with. That's why you can have somebody that can reach the mountaintop. But, man, to reach the mountaintop like a Tom Brady did, like a Patrick Mahomes does, I mean, that continued success of greatness, you cannot have so many different things going on. They just stayed relentless in their pursuit of that which is important. And that's where, man, I just got off sidetracked so early on. I would have changed that.
Yeah, I love it, man. Okay, last but not least, the lightning round. 4 fairly short questions. Your answers can be as long or short as you like.
Oh, okay, good.
All right? Yeah. All right, number 1. So this is really interesting because I have everybody send me a bio and all that good stuff. You have caddied at PGA Tour events. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Dude, what is that like? Because that's not something I'd ever thought about. You see a caddy every weekend when you're watching golf, but what is that like?
So people would ask, because I've caddied probably over 20 PGA Tour events, and these are just like only for my clients. Like I'm not getting many calls today. So, hey man, can you fill in? But I would be a fill in. The bags do get heavy if your golfer shoots 77. They're not heavy at all when he shoots 67. And here's the thing. Here's the thing too, Mike. It's like we shot 67. He shot 78. You know, when parents talk, hey, we played really well. When it's bad, it's like, oh well, you know, he didn't have a good game. They never say like, hey, we didn't have a good game. It's the closest thing to being a head coach that there is. You know, it's like, I think especially at the professional level, they will save their golfer one shot around. It's millions and millions of dollars, man, at that level.
That's crazy.
And it doesn't always mean like every hole that they're going to do it, but there's going to be that one time where they're in between clubs and they just got to be able to trust it. It's going to be the one thing you kind of say to them that they kind of resonate with, the positive feedback. I was more the mental coach, but when it came to the caddying part, then I'm caddying the bag and just trying to keep them focused on what's important. And then in between shots, we're letting our mind relax, distracted, stuff like that. And caddying, the secret to caddying is all about good timing. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's fascinating, dude. I feel like that could be like a full podcast just in and of itself, right? Like I couldn't imagine what goes on there.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So I've probably done over hundreds of practice rounds with professional golfers. And I look at it now, it's like, man, if there would be one thing that's really great at is if I go out like to do a practice round with a junior golfer, you show them exactly what like the pros are doing, exactly how you need to approach this practice round. Yeah, it's tremendous, man. It's fun to be able to take that knowledge into it.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, number 2. Dude, what sparked the interest in like the Ironmans, the ultra marathons? Like what got you into all of that?
So, yeah, my very first marathon was probably 2002, back when I had some speed, you know what I mean? It was like my fastest marathon ever was like 3:21, but man, I'm a goal setter, man. It's like
right.
I had some back issues early 2000s and then was relegated to the pool. All right, man, let's just get after it in the pool, right? You're going to break a minute in the 100 free. Like that's going to be your goal. And you go out there and you just do it. And so it's like what I am really good at is never giving up. And now I like to do races that are kind of revered for if you just stay in it, you'll finish. And 100 miles, all you got to really keep doing is left foot, right foot, just keep going. So people would say, man, even when it comes to marathon, like, look, life's a sprint. I mean, life's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Look, man, that's a bunch of shit because I've done a lot of marathons, and I think life is way harder than a marathon. And, you know, so people would say, man, I can never run a marathon. Okay, well, let me ask you this. Let's say next week that if you don't run 26.2 miles, that your family is going to be shot. Would you run it then? Well, probably, I guess I could, right?
For sure, yeah.
So this isn't a thing of whether you could, it's whether you want to do it. Well, yeah, you know, so then it's getting back to that motivation piece, that baseline of mental toughness. And then the other part is, man, I really love I love the discipline. I love the life of when I'm training for those things because, you know, life makes sense. I like playing. I love the preparation. I like getting after it, man, and it's not like, man, running 24 miles on the trail is like, I'm not saying it's all enjoyable. Like there's a lot of difficult times, but there's a perspective to that, and I'm choosing to be out here. So one of the great ultra runners says, smile or you're doing it wrong. I like to take that attitude and everything because, look, you don't have to, man. You get to, but they talk about it. But you want to enjoy this, man. Like, smile or you're doing it wrong. So, yeah, there's a lot of suck that goes into being at mile 20 wanting to be done. And that was kind of how the book got written, man. But I just love getting after it in life. I love being able to set those goals and then just being able to dedicate time and space to it and get after it and do it. Life is so short, man. I don't want to ever look back and say, you know, I didn't do something because I was afraid of it, you know. So that's not in the equation, man.
Agreed. I love it, man. Okay, number 3. I'm really interested in this one too. What made you want to start writing books?
I was a horrible writer. This is how bad of a writer I was. When you get to college, you test out of taking English 101, right? You take a test. You can test that at 101. I was so bad at writing, I had to take 010. Like I didn't even get credit for the class, man. Like that's how bad. That's how bad I was. And to really, really work on the writing, like writing a thesis, man, and having it be perfect, writing a dissertation, it's got to be perfect. You know, there's no errors in that one at all. That was where then I'm a pretty good writer. I can write. And then it was like I just felt the need to say something and I wanted to help people at the same time. So it was I wanted to be able to take these ideas and put them out there to be able to help people. So, man, I've got 8 books. I think I have like over 350 like blog posts, and it's all in mental toughness. Yeah. It's all in sports psychology. And it's, man, how can you take that idea of buttermilk and make it into a blog post, how it's going to help people, right? So what about is it that buttermilk? Well, buttermilk is at its best when it's helping other things be great. Buttermilk biscuits, buttermilk fried chicken. Buttermilk by itself isn't that much fun. Yeah. But you know, so I take that and I marinate that into like a post on terms of when you help other people, now you're at your best. And that's what I love to do, man. I just love being able to write and getting paid to do it, man. I look at it now, it's like a real blessing. I've gotten to the point where I think I'm a pretty good writer. I would definitely take the Pepsi challenge when it comes to that. But I'm not like a novelist, I'm not like a Jack London or something like that. I just like take an idea, let's make it marinate so people can make sense of it, and it helps them get better.
Yeah. But you follow some of those mantras, right? Like I've read about, because I've written a decent amount myself, and man, you listen to a guy like Stephen King, man. He's got a routine. I've got a book back here that's just, I think it's just called On Writing or Daily Rituals. And man, best writers in the world write every day, right? Whether they want to or not. There's another lesson in that, right? Oh, I don't feel like doing it today. No. Like if it's important, you get it done every day, no matter how you feel.
Right. Absolutely. And people will contact me. Oh, I want to write a book. I'm like, okay, it's great, man. Like, do it. It's not hard. Sorry, it's simple. It's just not easy. Like it is hard, but it is simple.
Yes.
It is a lonely existence. I don't like the going through writing it because you isolate. You're kind of stuck inside your own head. And that's why there's got to be a lot of breaks in between. People say, man, write a book in 30 days. We'll write your book for you in 30 days or less. Look at the time to it, right? Like, I don't know how good that's going to be, man.
Exactly. Dude, last but not least, number 4. What's next for Dr. Rob Bell?
Oh, that's always
What are you working on? What are you excited about? What's next?
I can't wait to be patient. Is obviously the book. That's going to be an audio book here with this summer.
Okay.
Can't wait to be patient. And it's the online piece, the online coaching piece has taken off. So being able to create like, hey, I've got resources like, and this one's like specifically designed for golfers, right? But we designed a junior golf mental game roadmap, but now it's a course. So now it's a course so people can, if they want the one-on-one coaching with a sports psychology coach, then they can purchase that, right, and go with that. And so that's being able to create those resources so I can have residual income and help people at the same time. That's the best.
Yeah.
And that's just really developing that, working on that, man. And then I get to pick and choose athletes I get to work with, executives I get to work with. Blessed to be able to do what I do, man, and then be there for my kids' functions and spend time, man. I don't know what the next book will be right now. There's not one that's there just because it takes a lot out of you, man. So it's like
for sure.
I segment my life into 1 year I'll write a book. The next year we're going to do a big race. So this will be big race year. So we're going to see what that'll entail.
I love it. Well, man, Rob, this was amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I know you got a ton going on, so I appreciate you coming on here and sharing all of your wisdom with us. Where can my listeners find out more about you and all the great work you're doing? Yeah,
thanks, Coach, again for having me on, man. You're one of the best in the business. I'm glad, that you're in Indianapolis. It's such an awesome place to live, man. I mean, it's just so great.
I agree.
So
I love it here.
Wonderful people that are here, and it's just a great city as well. I mean, it's a big city with a small town feel. So, just want to thank you, man. I mean, again, I've got 8 books on mental toughness. Anyone can get anyone they want, man. It's on Amazon. But my website, it's just if people go to my website, man, they can download. I've got a free resource for them, daily focus roadmap. Same things that we're talking about, right? Segment the day, schedule the off my desk. First hour of the day has to set the rudder for the rest. Free infographic for them, man. But they go to drrobbell.com. So drrobbell.com.
Okay, perfect. I will get all of that in the show notes. So a link to the Amazon page, a link to your website. Make sure you're checking out Dr. Rob's stuff because, man, he is just cranking out great information that can help you, the clients or athletes that you coach. Again, Rob, this was amazing.
Yeah,
dude.
thanks so much, Coach. Really appreciate you, man.